Hi, it's John. It's the end of January 2024. This is a story I hinted at several months ago that I wanted to cover, and here it is. Now, this happened again late last year. There's the address bar for this particular source on the story. There's another one as well. Later I'll get to. So this is the address bar for this one. If you want to punch it in yourself into your address bar and read the whole thing, I've got some parts highlighted, starting of course with the headline. 18 of them refused to go to work. Because of these. But not just these, but these when they're hacked. That's what I think happened here. I'll get to more of that. I'll get deeper into that shortly as to why I think. You already have seen several of my previous videos on the topic. You know why I think so, but in general, but more specifically, I'll tell you why I think so in this case. Here's, again, if you were to put this information in your address bar, same as on the previous page, this is, that was the headline in the picture, and this is the story that you would find underneath. So you can see it was written on November 2nd, 2023, right? So, again, you can slow it down if you want to read it, or if you want to read the whole article, you can, again, put in the information. But what's interesting is that even if you read the whole article, what you will not find anywhere is even any hint of the possibility that the cell towers were hacked, even though it is publicly available information from multiple sources that cell towers can be hacked, and there's plenty of evidence that they have been hacked for various purposes for years. And I presented some of that evidence on some of my previous videos in this series, as you know, especially in part 15 or 16, so part 15, 16, and maybe 17, and maybe elsewhere too. I can't remember them all. I'm going off by my memory here, but at least part 15 or 16, I presented documents to show that cell phone towers can be hacked, and also evidence that radio waves can cause major damage to human tissue, including brain damage, as was shown by some of the documents released by the Biden administration that studied the Havana syndrome and released those documents in 2022. Now, radio waves can cause this major damage, and cell towers emit radio waves. And people have suffered Havana syndrome, just a fancy schmancy name for symptoms caused by this insanity, by these jacked up electromagnetic frequencies. As I mentioned before, this is just a fancy name. It has nothing to do with Havana. That's where it was first identified. But there are cell towers all over the world, and there are people suffering these types of symptoms all over the world. About 4% of the population, because cell towers are all over the world, and that's where the radio waves are coming from. Obviously, that's where the radio waves are coming from. Where else would they be coming from? Now, of course, this part of the article, same article that I showed before, the little address bar is still there. Again, it's like so often what mainstream media does, it's not so much that they directly lie to you, although sometimes they do, but it's more what they don't tell you. the information they omit, either because they're incompetent or because they purposely want to omit certain information to protect certain bodies, certain organizations, in this case, the telecommunications industry. And of course, the government has an interest in protecting them because they get, no doubt, major political funding donation from these corporations, because these corporations can afford to give millions of dollars to governments and opposition parties as well in Canada and the US and all over the world. They can afford it because they're multi-billion-dollar corporations. So it's not rocket science to figure out, why they're being protected by the government. So if you read this, you think like, oh, that makes sense. Well, I'll read it. The part I'm talking about. So the federal department said that radio frequency EMF emitted by cell phones and cell towers is a type of non-ionizing radiation similar to the energy used in AM, FM radio and TV broadcast signals. Adding exposure to low levels of it poses no health risks. Yes, I know that they say that, and I've covered that in at least one or two previous videos. But the point is, they say it causes no problems, it poses no health risks at low levels. But guess what? Like I said before, when they're hacked, the levels are not low, they're high. They're hacked and they're manipulated. And it is technically possible to do it. And there is indirect evidence that it was done by all the people, thousands of people around the world suffering from Havana syndrome. And the Biden administration experts admitted in 2022 that radio waves can cause those symptoms, including major headaches, which of course I mentioned before I suffer from, and also brain damage, which MRI or fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging scans have shown at least some of the people suffering from Havana syndrome have suffered brain damage. Okay? So what that means is that they were exposed to not low levels, okay? Nobody's arguing that low levels are safe. The point is they're not low. When they're hacked, they're high. That's why they're hacked. That's one of the reasons cell towers are hacked. There are other reasons why some hackers hack cell towers, as I've shown in some documents in previous videos. The point is, at least some of the hacking is done to elevate the levels. Now they do further in that article say, any further adverse health effects would only occur if there's a combination of intense, lengthy, and direct radio frequency EMF exposure, Health Canada said. Well, only if there's a combination of intense, lengthy, and direct radio frequency EMF exposure. Well, as far as the direct part, that's just double talk. What do you mean direct exposure? You either are exposed to it or you're not. If your cell phone can pick up a signal, you're being exposed to EMF. Okay? And it's direct. There's no such thing as direct or indirect. You're either exposed to it or you're not exposed to it. That's not the issue. That's a diversion tactic right there. The issue is how strong is the level of the EMF. And there are ways to measure that. It's called a Geiger counter or an EMF detector. Those are portable devices that can't be hacked, unlike built-in computers that regulate cell towers. The same computers that allow them to be hacked are also not built, according to my research, to identify if they were ever hacked. They don't record any record of the hacking. So, how do you know then? How do these experts know? These Health Canada experts, or for that matter, the FCC in the US, how do they know? How do they know that the exposure is at the low level? Because, you see, one thing is, through all of this article, you can read the whole thing, you will not see any actual reference to what the level is, to when they last measured it, to what they measured it at. What did they measure it at? How many gigahertz was it? Was it below the safety range of 90 gigahertz? which is the established safety range by the CRTC and the FCC and other such agencies across the world, was below 90 gigahertz. You won't see that in this article. They don't mention it. Now here's that same story. This one given to you by, of course it's blurry, so sometimes it is. There's the address bar there, there's some background, uses the address bar information there if you want to type it in. It's blurry, I apologize, as this camcorder sometimes does. Make it go blurry. This is a little bit deceptive as far as the date goes, but I'm telling you it's the same story. The reason it's a little bit deceptive is because if you look at it here, you'll see the date, as in today's date, right? But that's referring to the current date of whenever you go on this website. Even if you look at a story from months ago, you'll still get that date at the top for the current date that you're on the website. But this actual story, if you look more closely, this actual story says published 3 months ago, okay? Right there, published 3 months ago and updated 3 months ago, okay? So it's the same story as the one that was covered by the CBC. This is just another news site that covered it. And again, it was updated 3 months ago, so basically nothing since. And this is just a continuation of it. Now, what bugs me about this one, well, there's a lot that bugs me about all of this, but about this particular page, what bugs me is right here where it says, Ministry of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development said it has not received any complaints from the school about nearby cell tower radiation. They have not received any complaints. So what? Who knows who to complain to? Who says they're the proper authority to complain to? Because if you try to do the research on who to complain to about these issues, you wouldn't come up with the Minister of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development. You wouldn't come up with this, what I'm showing you right there. Okay? Because when I did the research on who to complain to on it, I did not come up with that. So why even mention it that they didn't receive complaints, whether or not they have any authority in dealing with them, because it is a multi-jurisdictional issue that can be dealt with by municipalities in some aspects and by the feds in others. In this case, is the province piping up and saying they didn't receive anything about it. So what? So what if they didn't receive anything about it? Someone received something about it, otherwise it wouldn't have been on this news story on at least 2 different sites. Now I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. I'm going to have more to say about this issue. Well, as I've had a lot to say about it in the past, I'm going to have a lot more to say about it in the near future. Yeah, so I'll get to that soon. This, unfortunately, is near the 15-minute mark, and so I do have to end this particular part. Thanks. See you soon. Bye.